The cat who chose her human. In the oldest part of the city, where buildings leaned tiredly against each other and the streets smelled of rain and forgotten dreams, there lived a small gray cat. Her fur shimmered faintly under moonlight, though no one ever noticed. Her eyes were an unusual shade of silver, almost like liquid starlight. People passed her every day. Some shooed her away. Some pretended not to see her at all. They called her nothing, because no one cared enough to give her a name. But the cat was not ordinary. She carried something ancient inside her, a quiet magic, old as the wind, soft as moonlight. She could feel human hearts the way others feel warmth from the sun. She could see sadness like shadows clinging to shoulders. She could sense kindness glowing faintly beneath layers of pain. Yet for all her magic, she was alone. She slept beneath broken staircases. She drank from puddles after rain. She watched humans rush past with expensive shoes and empty eyes. And she waited, not for food, for someone to see her. One winter evening, the cold was sharper than usual. Snow drifted lightly onto sidewalks, turning the city into something almost gentle. The cat curled herself behind a dumpster near a closed bakery, her small body trembling. That's when she saw him. He sat across the street on a torn blanket. His coat was thin, his beard untrimmed, his hands red from cold. A paper cup rested beside him, with only a few coins inside. Most people walked past him the same way they walked past her, carefully avoiding eye contact. He wasn't invisible, but he was close. The cat watched him for a long time. There was no bitterness in his face, only exhaustion. And something else, loneliness. Slowly she stood and padded across the icy road. Her paws made no sound. She stopped a few feet away from him and sat down. The man looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. "Well," he murmured softly, his voice rough but kind. "Aren't you a brave one?" No one had spoken to her like that before. He reached into a small paper bag beside him and pulled out half of a sandwich. It was all he had left. He hesitated only a second before tearing off a piece and placing it gently on the ground. "There you go," he said. "Can't have you going hungry, can we?" The cat stared at the food, then at him, and something inside her, something ancient and glowing, stirred awake. She ate slowly, savoring not the taste, but the intention behind it. Kindness, pure, unasked, unrewarded. When she finished, she did something she had never done before. She walked closer and pressed her head lightly against his hand. The man froze, then laughed quietly. "Guess I've got company tonight." He didn't know that at that very moment, silver light flickered faintly through her fur. That night, the snow fell harder. The man lay down on his blanket, shivering despite trying to hide it. The cat curled against his chest, her body warm in an unnatural way, warmer than it should have been. As he drifted into sleep, she closed her eyes, and the city changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. The next morning, something unusual happened. A niece, who owned the bakery across the street, stepped outside early and noticed the man and the cat sleeping together. Something softened in her chest. She walked over cautiously. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Are you all right?" Elias blinked awake, confused by the kindness in her tone. Yes, ma'am." Anise hesitated, then said words she hadn't planned to say. "We need help cleaning inside. It's temporary. But if you'd like." Elias stared at her, unsure if he'd heard correctly. Days turned into weeks, and Elias began working at the bakery. He swept floors, washed trays, and worked harder than anyone expected. Argento waited outside every day, and customers began noticing her. "She's beautiful," they'd whisper. "She looks almost magical." Children would stop to pet her, and every person who touched her fur seemed to leave lighter somehow. Business improved, Anissa smiled more, and Elias finally began to laugh again. But magic always carries a quiet rule. It does not give without reason. One evening, as Elias closed the bakery, he found Argenta sitting beneath a street lamp. "You're something special, aren't you?" he whispered. She stood and walked away, looking back to invite him. He followed her through streets he barely recognized to a small, abandoned building. Inside, against a dusty wall, was a metal box. Elias had passed this alley hundreds of times, but had never seen it. He opened it slowly. Inside were old documents, a faded photograph, and a sealed envelope with his name on it. It was a letter from his late father that had never reached him. Hands shaking, Elias read the words. The letter explained that he hadn't been left with nothing. There was property and land that he had believed was lost forever. He looked at Argenta, the silver light in her fur shimmering one last time. He wasn't just a man on a blanket anymore. He was home. Months later, Elias stood before his new bookstore. Anise hugged him proudly. Later, Elias knelt beside Argenta. "You chose me," he whispered. She had chosen him for his kindness. One morning, she was gone, leaving only an empty, sun-warmed doorstep. But somewhere, silver eyes still watch, waiting for another human who would share their bread with magic.